Tonight we continue our series of interviews with candidates running in the Democratic primary on Thursday, September 8th. Our guest is one of the candidates running for Register of Deeds for Suffolk County. We'd like to welcome Jeff Ross. Thank you very much for being with us, Jeff.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy this show.
First of all, talk about the work you've been doing already and how that relates to this office.
Sure. Well, I'm a community activist, as folks know, across the city, and I've worked on a variety of things like social justice causes across the city, like equality in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, working on small business opportunities for women and community of colors. Women and community of color owned small businesses, and I have 15 years of real estate law experience, and I've been practicing law, handling complex transactions, title corrections, 183(5)(b) affidavits, which are custody and chain of title affidavits, and a whole host of other issues that are actually handled at the Registry of Deeds. This is a place where people's property rights are protected or taken away. Some folks say it's a management job, but in reality, I've been all across the entire county. I've knocked doors in every neighborhood, and you don't knock through a neighborhood and not meet people who don't need to use the registry or don't need access to information. There are people in every neighborhood who are struggling with access to information about the registry, not only what it does, but examples of how it can help folks.
Well, everybody who buys or sells a piece of property in the county is going to be involved in the registry, sometimes without even going there. But at the same time, what have you learned about problems that you might like to fix?
Sure. I mean, it does affect everyone in the registry, and not just property owners use the registry. Sometimes you have leases for renters that are recorded there. But I was knocking in Hyde Park last week, and I met a gentleman who recently purchased a property on Metropolitan Avenue. He had his lot surveyed and discovered that he actually owns more property than is recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So we sat down and talked about his deed and the chain of title and the documents that he needs to pull and the path that he needs to take to try to get it corrected. I met a woman in Winthrop and her neighbor, actually. The woman in Winthrop needed a copy of her deed and she couldn't afford it. So we talked about the possibility of waiving. There are waivers out there for some state fees, and just circling back and giving people access to me and the information that I'm able to help them with. One of our neighbors actually invited me in, and I thought I was going to get fed on Sunday. And they brought down a copy of the homestead exemption, and they needed guidance about how to fill it out and what the things they needed to do to perfect it, such as getting the document notarized, and having the registry look up the book and page. But senior citizens I met in Revere, take trips to the registry. They stand up and are waiting in line. And if they are missing something like a notarization on a form that they should have gotten, they have to come back. And that really presents challenges in accessibility. So people say they want to conduct a mobile registry of deeds. We've been out in every neighborhood talking to people about it. And I think that's something that the next register should continue, is really being in communities and not only talking with people like, hello, I'm the registrar and I'm here, what do you need today? But talking to them about what the registry does and the challenges other people have had with the Registry of Deeds. Because when they realize challenges other people have had, a light goes off and say, hey, I need a service to get that issue fixed. I need my lot line fixed. I met a couple that lives on the beach. Their deed doesn't say who is responsible for the property line. Once you get onto the ocean, they have to put up an expensive seawall. It's a retired teacher and a retired postal worker, and they've spent $15,000 of their life savings. So it is the most important investment a home is that folks will make in their lifetimes. And the practices at the registry can improve errors and sort of help avoid some people face financially devastating consequences for errors that are made with their property records. And that's why I'm running, because I think that I'm best qualified to help folks.
We're talking with Jeff Ross, candidate for Register of Deeds in Suffolk County. I've interviewed almost all of the candidates for this office so far this year, and some of them, like you, know all these fine complexities. They have legal backgrounds, and we have another candidate, at least one, who says, look, I actually managed something.
Sure.
So put that in context. I mean,
when you're managing an agency with 32 employees, you need to have some knowledge of, employment law. and that is helpful because you can avoid challenges with employees. The mediation practices that are used in the employment context when you have a large group of people. This is not necessarily a job that you're just managing employees. Everyone has their tasks and assignments. So you have a clerk who's doing data entry when there's a filing. They're looking up the book and page, matching that online to all of the previous records for that particular piece of property, connecting the name and the address. I don't know what management, you let people kind of come in and do their jobs. Well, the Registry of Deeds is the assistant recorder to the land court. The Registry of Deeds has a land court. We are one of only 2 in the entire country. And that's because of the complexity of the transactions that happen in Suffolk County. They're more complex than anywhere in the state. Because of the vertical nature of building in the city of Boston, you have to get certain documents filed when you're talking about common space usage, condominium documents, and they have to have legal descriptions of where you walk your dog, where you can barbecue, in those common areas. And so to avoid litigation, you want folks who are converting apartments to condominiums or who live in condominiums to have access to that information so that they know that all of those rights are laid out in advance, and it just precludes errors. So the registry has an important function, and it is very legal in nature. I'm one of only 2 attorneys in the race and one of 3 legal professionals. But I have extensive experience in the real estate field, and this is where people's property rights are essentially protected or lost.
Well, I'm sure you're well aware that instead of just going there and lugging those big books around, these days people get their information by going online. And would you make some changes in how the registry operates online?
Absolutely. I don't think it's just about updating the website. People say, I'm going to update the registry's website. Well, really what you need to do, and one of the jobs at the registry, if you talk to the budget office at the Secretary of State's department, you need to work with the other registries across the state to implement a standardized system so that we're all using the same system. There are multiples out there, and so it's not consistent if you are practicing in the real estate area and you're constantly recording like mortgages or easements or transferring title to properties. But the registry actually, one of the things we use in litigation, this is why I think it's important to have an attorney in there, because you have the foresight with the experience you have in litigation to prevent problems from happening that can be devastating to families. So one of the things we use is optical search software. And we have 4,000 of the original records scanned and sitting on a desk. And the cost of labor to have all of those records data entered is incredible. And the length of time that it takes is incredible. But if we take all of the records that we have and we can get them scanned, we can put them online in a matter of days through this optical search scan software. You use it in documents where there are over 1 million. You use it in litigation where there are over 1 million documents involved. And you type in this street address, for example, and it'll pull up all of the property records with that street address, or you could type the street address and a last name and it will call all of the records. And it's much less expensive and it's quicker. And so we can actually serve residents of Suffolk County a little better by having technologies that are used by lawyers.
Well, one problem that we've encountered a lot, especially during the economic downturn, was all these mortgages that get sold into the market, and by the time there was a foreclosure, it became kind of murky as to who actually controlled the property. Do you see anything the registry can do to clear that up?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that's going on right now, there were 2 pieces of litigation, one in Kentucky and the other one in Pennsylvania. And consumers brought lawsuits against the large banks, MERS, the Mortgage Electronic Recording System, and Bank of America, and a whole host of other groups. Well, that litigation was struck down in those 2 states because the courts decided that the recording statutes were too vague. So what happens in those circumstances that were surrounding that piece of litigation is you take out a mortgage, you buy a home, and later your bank will sell that mortgage on a secondary market, not 1, but sometimes 2 and 3 times. So folks in foreclosure don't have access to information about who actually owns their note. And one of my proposals is that we legislate the recording statutes, we fix them and make them a little bit more particular to require banks to record more transactions. Not only will it raise a tremendous amount of revenue for the state, make big banks pay their fair share, but folks who are in foreclosure, and we're talking about mortgage foreclosure, will actually be able to know at the moment that that note is sold who owns their note and where to go and who to defend against the foreclosure. Now, what the registry does do, and it doesn't handle foreclosures in any other way, you can provide information, you want to be out there and accessible and refer people to resources if they have foreclosure issues around mortgages, but tax lien foreclosures by towns and cities in the county of Suffolk actually happen at the land court at the Registry of Deeds. So there is also legislation pending around tax lien foreclosures that would give the tax court judges, the land court judges, the discretion to wipe out liens if they can level the playing field for homeowners who are at risk of losing their homes. And that's really where the registry is incredibly legal in nature, and someone with a real estate background is there, that's in there, can serve the constituents of Suffolk County so much more effectively with all of the technicalities that are out there.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Jeff Ross.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Take care.
Candidate for Suffolk County Register of Deeds. We'll have more news in just a moment.